In life, we tend to meet a lot of different people. If you're unlucky, of course, you get to meet bad people. But I've been very lucky, and a lot of the people I've met are terribly interesting. And there was a fellow called Dave. He was a bit older than I was. I think he was probably from the East End of London. And as soon as I heard him talk, he shouted over from a distance he was a friend of a friend. And this is in Thailand. As soon as I heard his voice, I cringed because he was quite common in his behaviour and voice, of course, as they seem to go together. But he was an outgoing chap. Anyway, I got to know him, and it turned out that he was a multi-millionaire. In fact, he was only too willing to tell me he was worth 50 million. He had a building firm. And this is typical of working class people. They like to tell everyone how much they're worth because to them, life is all about money. Whereas to me, I respect people's intelligence because I haven't got their abilities, you see. I've got wisdom, but not the intelligence that we all want in this life. Anyway, he was a friendly chappie. And I decided to sort of ignore that common behaviour of his, that common trait, even though I'm a commoner myself. He told me the story about how he got into business because he was born poor. He was a Jew. Now, only a Jew could do what he did at the age of 5. At the age of 5, he realised he didn't like being born poor. So he decided at that point that he was going to be rich. And at the age of 5, a granny of his, for his birthday, gave him a few coppers or a few shillings, I can't remember now. And he saved it. And his mother eventually opened up a bank account for him so he could save all his money in the bank. And every penny from that moment on, at the age of 5, he never spent it on sweets. He always put it in the bank. Every penny. That's unusual. Not many kids could do that. I certainly couldn't. He carried on saving. Then at the age, because I think he was probably born around 1947, maybe 45 even. And at the age of probably 14, they probably left school in those days. At the age of 14 or 15, he got a job working for a glass company. They would fit the glass into windows in buildings, etc. And he said he could never go outside to fit the glass because he was scared of the heights. So if he went outside, he could have got an extra 3p a day. But he was too afraid. So he worked only from the inside. Anyway, he worked and saved, taking sandwiches to work and probably cycling to work as well. And then eventually he got enough money together in his 20s to put a deposit on a house and borrowed the rest from the bank. And of course, what you do, you don't just borrow enough to buy the house when you borrow from the bank. You borrow enough to pay for the work you're going to do on the bank on the house as well. Obviously, that's what he did. So he done this place up, sold it at a profit, and so he was about 25 years of age at the time. And his company, his glass company, had they were working for Harrods, but not directly for Harrods. The main glass company, which was doing the major work for Harrods, used to hire his company to do the difficult jobs when it came to glass. cutting glass, etc., and fitting glass. But after selling that house, he got the idea, and he went to the manager in Harrods, and he said, "Look, we're willing to offer you this amount of money, more than our competitors are offering you, to give us all the work." And then when he got that deal going, he went back to the company he worked for, and he bought the company out. As far as I know, he got the money not just from the sale of the house, but probably from the bank as well. Because once you get that signature from Harrods that you're going to do their work, you can borrow money on that. So anyway, he bought one of the partners out from the glass company that he worked for since the age of 14 or 15. And then he told me over the next 2 years, they were very successful, because it wasn't just doing work for Harrods, but he said one fella there who worked in the company, he was so good with glass he could do anything. He was like magic what he did. And that one man alone, he said, earned him his first £1 million. And by the time he was 27, he was a millionaire. Now, when I met him, he was a multi-millionaire, and he had a building company by then. And as he said, he was worth £50 million. I didn't really like him talking about that, because it's typical of working class people talking about the money they make. They put so much emphasis into money. The more money you make, the more they feel they're better than everyone else, when that's not true. It's only idiots who judge a man by how much money they got in their pockets. I always judge people by their intelligence. Anyway, he told me when he was a rich man, he married a girl that he was in love with, and she hated him from the very moment, but she got pregnant, and she married him. But he said the whole of that married life of 20 years, she hated him every moment. And what happened before they broke up, before the divorce, he bought her a very expensive car. It was a special, because they do special versions of cars as well, which are more expensive than the norm. And that's what he got her. And he put it outside in the driveway, and he went indoors and put the keys out, and he said, "This is a present for you." He said it took her 3 days before she walked outside to see this car. That's how much she hated him and everything to do about him. As I say, she only married for the sake of the child. In fact, I think she gave him 2 children eventually, a boy and a girl. Now, it's typical of working class men, or men in general, I don't know, because I don't know many upper class people. But he was constantly telling me about his son being, and you'd think his son had inherited his intelligence the way he spoke about him. And he told me about his daughter, and she worked in his company as an accountant. So straight away I realised that she had his intelligence. And the boy, he was learning to be a chef. Well, eventually, a few years later, I did get to meet his children at a pub that he owned. He was having a party there, that's how I got invited. And straight away I could see the girl, the daughter, and you could see her intelligence in everything she did. She inherited it from the father. But the boy, he was a pleasant young boy, maybe 17 or 18, but that's about all. He wasn't terribly intelligent. And yet he only talked about the boy. He never really mentioned the girl. He wasn't interested in the girl. That's typical working class, typical. Yeah, as I say, the girl had his brain. Obviously, the boy had the mother's brain, and that's how it works. I got my mother's brain, unfortunately, and she had a bad memory as well. Anyway, let's move on. He told me that he enjoyed going to wedding parties, not to the wedding itself, but the actual party. Can you imagine? You're worth 50 million, and you find wedding parties exciting. For me, that would be quite boring. Anyway, as I say, I met him in Thailand, and I talked him into coming with me to a Thai massage. Now, this massage, they give you, the girls are naked and they give you a bubble bath. That's wonderful. There's bubbles everywhere, and it gives you this wonderful bubble bath, and you just relax in there. And eventually, you get on a lilo, and they get on top of you with all these bubbles everywhere, and they rub themselves up and down you. It's wonderful. It's like a massage. It's very nice. And afterwards, you feel so refreshed. And it doesn't cost that much. It would cost a fortune in England, and they probably wouldn't be allowed to do it in England, as the opposite sex aren't really allowed to get sexual. I should have been born a gay woman. Anyway, he didn't like it, and I was surprised. But then I thought, well, he is working class. The working class have got different taste to people like myself. And he probably would have preferred to go to maybe a gambling place or maybe a boxing place, because they do a lot of Thai boxing there. You can watch live, and it doesn't cost any money. You just buy a drink at the bar and give some money as a charity thing to the boxers at the end. But anyway, I pointed out some of the girls. He said, no, they're slags. This is typical working class, slags. He calls girls who like men slags because they take money for sex. He ignores that sex is sex at the end of the day. Lust is lust at the end of the day. But of course, the girls aren't doing it for lust, they're doing it for money. So that annoyed me, but I hid my annoyance, as he was a decent chappie. And he eventually found this Thai girl who wasn't part of the sex scene, the bar scene. And he was saying that this girl is a decent girl. His idea of decency is totally different to mine. Decent girl for me is someone who doesn't swear, who's intelligent, sophisticated, good, preferably good looking. That's decent to me. And eats their meals at the table without pigging it like some people do. That's a decent girl to be. But anyway, his idea of a decent girl is that I think she might have been a virgin. Yeah, she was a virgin. As if that makes any difference. But anyway, working class, huh? So, he said he's going to marry this girl. I said, you've got to have sex before marriage. He refused. I said, it's like buying a car without testing it first. You've got to test it to make sure it works good. How do you know it's gonna work after you've had sex? He wouldn't accept that anyway. That wasn't an argument to him. And he ended up marrying this girl and taking her back to England. And he was giving her £500 a week, and she drove an expensive car. And he told me they did have sex when they got married, and they had sex just once. And she didn't like it. Serves him right, the idiot. You can be intelligent in one respect and be a total idiot in another respect. Well, she didn't like sex, so he never had sex with her after that. And this is a year later, I'm talking to him. And I said, well, what's she good for then, if you're not having a relationship? He said, she's a good cook. Yeah, but if she's a good cook, you just need a friend, don't you? Or maybe a girl to pay a girl to come around and do the cooking. Have a cook or a servant or something, if you're that wealthy. What's the point of a girlfriend if you're not having that love Obviously, if she doesn't fancy him sexually, she's not giving him a hug or a kiss and all that deep interest. So he's been married to the first wife who hated everything about him, and now he's got this second wife who can't stand having sex with him either. I told him, you're obviously cursed. You've got karma against you. You're never going to succeed. And he said, oh, I don't know about that. He can't take on new ideas, you see. But I wasn't joking when I mentioned karma. Anyway, she went back to Thailand to visit the family for 3 months, I think. And then eventually, after a while, he went back as well to meet her over there. And then he came back again while she's still in Thailand. Now, before he left, he got a letter through the door and he had to sign it saying that they've been together, they've never been separate. Or maybe, no, after she left. That was it, after she left. They've never been separated. That's what he said. He signed his name to it. This was an official letter. They've always been together. So when he came back from Thailand and she stayed in Thailand with the family, he came back on his own. He got arrested coming off the plane. They had a warrant out for him because they found that he lied when he signed that contract, and he got 3 months imprisonment. Well, as soon as they slammed that prison door, he had a heart attack. Well, it serves him right in a way for marrying a girl like that without having sex beforehand. I mean, that working class attitude it's just so backward. Having to get married to have sex, it's nonsense. I expect more of someone who's got that sort of intelligence. And I understand his mind only too well because he said his office desk, there's everything's put away and it's all ordered. And he had an orderly mind. And I'm envious of that because mine is disorderly, my mind. And it takes forever for me to get my paperwork sorted out. And even then it's never completely sorted out properly. So that's why I call him Commoner Dave. A nice chap if you can put up with his commonness. Oh, by the way, I had a girlfriend at the time, and well, she became a friend at the time, and so I tried to get him off with my ex-girlfriend. Even she didn't fancy him. She had no interest in him whatsoever. Life, huh?